Hello, Sarah.
Okay, welcome everyone on our finance meeting. What I thought that we'd start off like we normally do, have Angie just kind of give us the state of the city financially, and then I'm sure that we will have questions as she gives the information, and I think probably more detailed questions we have about the budgeting process will be after Angie's presentation.
Okay, thank you. We do not have the July financials out yet, but I do have a couple of the big ones that we're watching. We get numbers from Department of Revenue for July. We should be getting August numbers any day. The good news is sales tax was up $1,700 over July of 2019. So that's the first time we've been back over last year since the whole COVID thing started. So that's good news. It is making itself up. We're still 60,000 behind target overall, expecting to end 2020 probably about that if the trend continues the way it is right now. So overall, we're negative 2%, about 60,000 behind, but July, which are actually May numbers, looked way better in the last couple months. Hotel motel also improved. We're still down about 34,000 from July of 2019. We are on target overall for the year because we were ahead coming into 2020, and then we had some catch-up payments hit in January of 2020. So still on target. In the budget amendment that was proposed, we did build a little bit of cushion in there, not knowing what the rest of the year will be like with the COVID kind of ramping back up. So, but overall, things are looking good. The general fund's looking real healthy. Like I mentioned in that budget adjustment as well, it looks like we'll probably be about $1 million over target by the end of the year if things keep going the way they're going. The one we're continuing to watch, obviously, is the hotel motel tax and the convention center budget. Just assuming the convention center is probably not opening through the rest of the year. So definitely keeping our eye on that. And I think that's it. It's looking way better than we thought. In the beginning, we were really worried, but general fund's looking really good. It's just a matter of keeping our eye on the hotel motel tax. Hoping things keep going the way they have been going the last couple months. So, okay. Any questions?
I do, just on LTAC. One procedural one is because we have to start putting the meeting together for that, correct?
Correct.
Correct. And then what I would like to see, just because we don't know what's happening next year, and with the some of the monies that were allocated for this year, the events didn't happen, is when we do the LTAC, maybe just funding into the convention center and not doing anything else, not knowing what's happening next year with events or anything else, and just holding it. And then depending on when we open or whatever happens, possibly, we'll have that much more in the next year to be able to allocate it. But I would rather not do any applications other than the convention center for next year for LTAC, because we don't know what's going on. Is that something that we can do? Yeah.
Once we have, the mayor was actually asking me that question the other day, if we had any kind of guess on if any funds were going to be left over. And at this point, until we get the convention center budget put together and the LTAC revenue in there, we can't really see if there's going to be anything left over after that. But it's something we will have as we go into the LTAC process.
Yeah, but I mean, the budget's going to be a little harder now without the budget amendment when it comes to convention center. So, but yeah, we still have to go on with the LTAC meeting. So it kind of makes sense just to hold off other than the convention center.
Yeah, the big thing with the budget amendment was trying to get that convention center budget back in line, assuming some reductions in revenue. The problem is if we don't get enough LTAC money in through the rest of the year, our going to go in the negative. So that was part of the effort in trying to clean that up. And then as well as just kind of showing, because the mayor put, personnel cuts in right away that helped our cause when it comes to the expense side of the convention center. So trying to get that budget balance was a big purpose of the budget amendment.
Yeah. Okay, one of the things Sarah Dawson and I were talking about earlier, and Sarah actually suggested this, and I think she's right on. We need to have very simple little document that each one of the folks signs that we are rolling money over into next year for their events.
Yep.
So that they're recognizing that they have that, and we're recognizing that we're expecting. So we will have, you know, that as well. But we also agreed that raising expectations that we were going to have money for other events is just really not a good idea.
Yeah.
So she's going to update the documents so that we can do our normal application for those funds for the convention center. But beyond that, we didn't think that was a good idea. So we exactly wanted to talk about that at this. So I think we're sort of in agreement, I hope, and we can take that to council and make sure that everybody's happy there. That there won't be, you know, it won't be the normal thing.
No. Yep. I'm good with that.
Okay. Eric, do you want to bring that up at council, or do you want me to?
Either way, I'm good, but if you want to bring it up, I'm good either way. You know. Okay.
Well, as chair, I think
yep.
It's good for you then. Thank you.
Yep, I'll bring it up. You bet.
Just a question on LTAC going back, because obviously that's if I look at the budget, that's the only thing that I really have a concern with as far as funding. When will we know whether or not we need to talk about pulling something from the general fund for LTAC?
I'm looking at those numbers every month that when I get them from Department of Revenue. And like I said, so far we're tracking on target, but the minute those numbers start going below target, we're going to need to start having those discussions. So as of right now, we're still okay, but it's just kind of monitoring it month by month. We would just have to fix it by the end of the year to make sure that that fund doesn't end in the negative. So, yeah.
And when we're talking about LTAC funds, because some of the salaries are being paid by grants that we're getting for COVID.
Yep.
So those would be factored in as far as what our downside is, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So those were,
and I think it's fair, since we're recording this and other people will look at it. Those are salaries and benefits that are being paid for the people who are preparing the food that is for our feeding program. So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah. And those were actually part of the budget amendment too. I added a line in there to estimate how much we were going to get from CARES Act to reimburse those salary and benefit costs for the convention center.
Okay.
So we really
have a quick, go ahead.
So we seriously got to get that cleaned up pretty quickly then, don't we? So we can really understand where we're at.
Yeah, my fear is if we wait, I know there was a lot of discussion about waiting for the audit to be over. If the audit goes through the end of September, the first possible chance we would have to approve that budget amendment would be the first meeting in October. And then that wouldn't even hit our financial statements till November. So, you know, we're going to be working with some difficult.
Yeah, I mean, November is when we usually see the budget and are starting to.
Right.
I mean, so that's going to be pretty difficult if we're not even being able to work on the budget till September, and we have to have it out in front of everybody in November. That's just going to be brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we have that budget amendment on the calendar for July. It's meant to be a cleanup before we start.
Right. So, and I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, realistically, as far as audit goes and that budget amendment, whether the budget amendment was passed or not passed, has no effect on what they're auditing or how they're auditing it, correct?
No.
So, I mean, they're still going to be auditing the same things, whether it's the budget amendment passed or didn't pass.
Correct. So you have to remember that we're, like Steve mentioned at the meeting, we're auditing 2019 right now.
Right, right.
All of the items that they're auditing have already been approved as part of our 2019-2020 budget anyway. So
Yeah.
all this stuff has already happened. They come in after the fact and look at it. So there wouldn't be any changes. They're not even looking at budget compliance as part of the audit. So it's just,
Right.
It wouldn't have any effect if they found an issue with the golf course bid. That wouldn't affect the budget amendment. So
Right, right. And
Is
then
this
just,
the potential of additional meetings for the council?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, maybe additional study sessions, or if you need more time to work on the budget because of the delay. We have to get a budget approved by the end of the year, or we're not going to be in compliance with state law, and we can't spend any money in January. So we have to have this done by the end of the year.
And one of the things I'm optimistic on, though, is if you looked at the results of the survey that John put out, there's not a lot of disagreement on the council as opposed to what the major priorities are for the city for the next budget cycle. So I don't think, hopefully that won't be as big an issue. I mean, hopefully we can move forward on this. It seems like a lot of it's procedural, not substantive.
Right.
But if say the three members of the council do not want to change their votes, and we go into January where we do not have, we don't make the amendment done and potentially impact the passing of the budget, what do cities do? I mean, I'm assuming based on federal government, they shut things down.
Yeah, I actually talked to our city attorney earlier about this. I did confirm that the budget approval only requires 4 yes votes. So going into the 2021-2022 budget, that only requires a normal majority vote. The budget amendment still requires 5. So he has never been asked the question about not approving a budget because he's never even heard of that from, a local government. So he's going to do some research to see how that would work. I know that when the legislature doesn't pass their budget, they threaten to shut down because we don't have the legal authority to spend any funding if there's not a budget approved. As far as the budget amendment approval, if that is not approved by the end of the year, the council will have to respond to the basically breaking the state statutes. We'll have funds in the negative, and we'll also have funds over budget, and that is not allowed. So that will come back, and council will have to respond to that from the auditor's office.
So an explanation by our council to the state why we couldn't pass it. Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be a reportable condition, so they will write us up for it. But at this point, the staff management has tried to correct it, but ultimately council has to approve it in the end. So
going back to and none of us, at least of the members of the finance committee, were not on the entrance to the auditor, and I know that I received a phone call from one of the auditors about just questions in general, which I answered. And when I talked to her, she told me that this was just a normal audit. I mean, it wasn't anything that was in particular, but it appears that it is something more, or am I just missing something?
No, it's a normal, we get an audit every year. So they usually do a 3-part audit. They do an accountability audit, which basically audits our internal controls over like cash receipts and things like that. And then they also look at compliance with state laws and items like that. So that would include looking at Open Public Meetings Act, looking at bid projects, looking at LTAC, things like that. So that's one part. The second part is the financial audit, and we're required by our bond holders to have that done annually. And we have to file our report through what's called EMMA so that they have all that information. And that's totally normal. They look at our financial statements and our controls to make sure that we're reporting everything correctly and accurately. And then the third piece, which we didn't have to have for 2019, is a federal compliance audit. We didn't have enough federal money in 2019 to trigger that audit. So we're not doing that piece this year. It's just the accountability and financial. And yes, we do one every year. We do one for the city and the PFD both. And those are always posted. The state auditors has our audit reports back to, I don't even know, forever, if anybody was interested in pulling those up and looking at them. So, totally normal. It's a normal process. There's nothing crazy going on or abnormal about any of it. These questions that they're asking, they ask them every year. So.
And did you get a kind of a, well, you kind of alluded to it, but is there a hard date when we get the findings back?
They told me by the end of September. So
okay.
We're almost at the end of August already, and we still have to finish the audit, have the exit conference, get the reports issued. So probably end of September.
When do you think the exit conference will happen?
Probably the middle of September.
Okay.
Middle to end, yeah.
And that's where they present whatever their findings are, and council can ask questions, right?
Yes. Yep. So like we did with the entrance conference, we can't have a quorum. So we'll have up to 3, but then whatever results they share, we'll send them out to the rest of the group so everybody's aware. And the mayor usually gives an update at one of the council meetings too, so that the public can hear how the audit turned out. And then we also post them on our website, and the state posts them on their website.
So between now and then, middle, end of September, for you and, department heads and the city working on the budget, how are you, are we able to still do that? Or is it just too cumbersome without having the numbers correct in the system? Because, the budget amendment is in one place, and you can't move the monies around in the system without that approved. So how do we, are you still able to function with the budget, or is it just real difficult?
The budget, the major impact we're going to have by not approving that is when the monthly financials come out.
Yeah.
To be able to see accurate targets in there. So, we were trying to amend the revenues and the expenses to make sure that if we're supposed to be at 75% of the budget, we're at 75%, but those percentages are all going to be off because we're basing them on data that's wrong. So that's going to be the challenge. Those financial statements are pretty critical, especially as we get closer to the end of the year, to figure out how much surplus we're going to have, or if funds are overspent. So without cleaning those up and having those in the monthly financials, it's just going to be, that report's not as meaningful, I guess. Yeah. Council gets it and the department heads get it. It's just not as accurate as it could be.
So let me just see if my observation is correct here, that there really is no meaningful reason for this thing to be held up. Is that correct?
Not in my opinion, no. I don't think audit will change anything. And like I said, it's normal for us to get this done in July. It's part of our budget calendar every year. I'm not aware that we've ever had a delay to wait for the audit. So no, not in my opinion.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah, and I just get a little clarification based on the last council meeting we had, because on the containment building, the numbers were going around and it didn't seem to fit what really happened, because the 1.4 million to 2.4, but the original estimate from the engineers was around 1.4 million, but that wasn't, then Roglan's gave us a bid of 1.8, correct? And they were the only bid we got. Quig didn't even bid on it. Nobody else bid on it because they were all too busy at the moment. That's correct, right? The original bid was 1.8.
The amount that we put in the budget was 1.8, but that was far before we actually got the bids back.
Right. So that 1.4 was a real early number that didn't.
Yeah, really and the 1.8 was as well. And I think the point of emphasis on that is that every time there's been a change in that project, Nick has brought it to council, and council has told us to proceed. Yes, you will have the money to do this. So you know, we're at the point right now with the budget amendment where it's just the paperwork.
Right.
Go back and look at the council meetings, and council blessed it throughout the way. He's never, you know, had a cost increase without asking approval beforehand. So,
well, and the main cost, you know, when he had to come back to us for, I think it was the 450,000, none of that even came out of the general fund. That all came out of Nick's budget, correct?
correct.
Right, that's what I thought. And then the only other thing after that was the 70,000 for the fire suppression. So there really isn't, I mean, the questions that are being asked about that have already been answered.
It's been very transparent.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me, when was that money first appropriated?
It was put in the 2019-2020 budget.
Uh-huh.
We were talking about that back in 2018.
That's what I thought, yeah. Okay.
Angie, just a question, because this is one of those things that just kind of has been driving me a little bit crazy. But I know that we're under rule of law that we cannot turn off water. And so therefore we're not collecting funds. And I know that I had a conversation with PUD, which is in the same situation. Do we have a number of how much money of revenue that isn't there because we haven't shut off water? Not that I'm saying that we should shut off water, but.
I would have to have utility billing run that. Payments were due today. So we've been trying to keep that up to date minute by minute to see what the impact's been. So I don't have them right now, but it's something that I could get, yes.
Because just one of the things that I worry about is that one of these days it's going to be lifted, and then all of a sudden the people that haven't paid now probably aren't going to have the money to pay then, and we're not actually counting on that funding to come in because we only count when the revenue actually comes in, correct?
Yeah, so we have the same concern here. Our plan is we are very conscientious about people getting behind. I'm going to say most people have been keeping up, even though they don't have to necessarily be paying right now. Most of them are, because we do have that conversation of, yeah, you technically don't have to pay, but once this is relieved, you're going to have a bill of $1,000. So we will be working with those customers to offer payment arrangements. And, you know, we're very flexible when it comes to that. We try to work with them the best we can, because we understand this is not necessarily anybody's fault. It's just the situation we're in, and we're going to have to clean it up, and we'll work with them.
Okay, and then Angie, I've been spending a lot of time talking to different state representatives on different things, and everyone's doom and gloom about the state finances. And our county commissioners have kind of expressed the same thing about that they've got shortfalls, and I keep racking my head, and I look at our numbers compared to what everyone else is telling me. That am I missing something, or did we just get out in front of, you know, making quick decisions on staffing and things like that, and before others?
I believe we were one of the only places in the county that did layoffs and reduced hours right when this happened. So I think we did get in front of it. And quite honestly, we've been so busy until COVID hit that we were ahead, and we have good fund balances because we've been saving, and we've just had really good financial processes, and the council's been monitoring things. So, and now that things are opening back up, we're seeing a huge impact because everybody's coming here. So our finances are looking good. I have heard other cities, when this whole thing started, we were expecting sales tax to just plummet, and they were seeing the same thing we were, where it wasn't that bad. We were expecting, like you said, the doom and gloom, but people are like, why isn't our sales tax going down? And I think it's just because it was made up by the destination-based sales tax. You know, people were having goods delivered. That was part of it. And then the home improvement projects were going crazy because people couldn't leave home, so they were doing construction projects. So that was a big thing. And quite honestly, we weren't closed down all that long. I mean, we opened up the building stuff rather quickly, and that's a huge impact on our revenues. So we predicted doom and gloom, but right now it looks good.
I think too, John, one of the other things, we have postponed a number of projects. So that kind of artificially inflates the money we have available, but that would presume we weren't going to do those projects at all. And it's not that we didn't want to do them. It's just that with that hiatus in there when we were not supposed to be, just doing business as usual, we were supposed to be doing just what needed to be done and no more. That pushed a lot of things into next year that we simply can't get done this year because our window of good weather is going to be gone.
Just driving around and looking around, do we have an idea of if and how much building permits are up? I mean, there's houses going up everywhere. Are we on track for last year, or are we going above last year?
We went above last year. Picked up. I think we took in over 100,000 for July. So wow. Yeah, it was
103.
I thought the mayor sent out earlier today to count. Maybe you haven't seen it yet. The mayor sent out to council our building permits. We just got them in today.
Oh, I've been on this most of the day.
I can only imagine.
I'm only checking my work email at work at the moment. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. It's fresh and hot off the presses. We just got the numbers.
Look at that. Yeah. That's got to have a cute, especially with housing prices going up, because once those houses are built and assessed, then that's what they're taxed at. Right. And I know taxes are going up and up and up. So.
And the other the activity we've noticed, especially in utility billing, are the ownership changes. Properties are selling like crazy out here right now. So
and they're selling above what the asking price is. I had a neighbor, my neighbor across the street bought the house sight unseen from Michigan. Wow. To a Seattle realtor. Didn't even look at the house because she didn't want to lose it because she'd lost an earlier one. It's crazy.
Between the ownership changes for the housing stuff and then the new water and sewer connections, we've been inundated here. It's been real busy. So that's good. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it bodes well for next year and things can move ahead instead of just trying to figure it out and hold our breath.
Yeah.
We could be a lot further behind.
Yeah. So with the budget amendment, just because of how it got put out there, are we not able now to bring it back to council to see if we can do it sooner than the September date, or are we just going to hold off till the audit's done and deal with it in November with what do we have to deal with?
That would be a council decision. I have everything ready to go. I would not want to bring it back and have it fail again, though, because it feels like kind of a wasted effort and time. But
right.
Well, we'll never give it a pass unless we bring it back, though. I'd say bring it back.
Well, we got to make sure it's going to pass, though.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. I think that my feeling is that if we don't, it eventually will be brought back one way or the other, right. And the timing might be poor, but I'm more concerned about getting a budget passed. I think we can work through the other stuff with it, but I'm just concerned about maybe that we make a decision to not pass a budget just to not pass a budget versus, having a discussion about, is this the right things that we want to have in on that budget? Because I was like what I think Scott brought up, that when we did that survey and when the council got together and talked about what their budgeting priorities, there's nothing that I saw that I was like, this is crazy. I mean, that I think that we as a council were pretty much all on the same page of what the future of Ocean Shores looks like. So
I guess on the end of my part of the budget amendment, if I bring it back to council, what I would appreciate is if people are saying no to it, I would like to hear their feedback on what they would like to see changed, so that could help the process along, because it's kind of hard to bring stuff to council and have it rejected with no feedback on why. So if there's issues in there, that's what I would appreciate, because I can make those changes if that's what it's going to take to get it approved. But
it sounded like it was not so much the changes. It sounded like that there was some concern that the audit was going to find something that was a little off, whether it be in the containment building or LTAC or the golf course, that would affect the budget amendment. That was my impression, that they were looking for, that the auditors were going to find something, which isn't, wouldn't make a difference anyway on the budget amendment, whether they're going to find it or not. Holding up the budget amendment wouldn't make a difference on that.
It would not, because all of those things have already been approved.
Yeah. So.
And I just asked one interior question. Angie, has everyone, I know that the 18th was the date for David Batchelor to receive all these things from the departments that were logged in on the budget module. Have you received everything you need from that now?
I have a couple that are going to get me stuff Monday.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you're getting everything you need from the departments.
Yep.
I don't have anything else.
No. Are we still on track to, in the budget cycle, to be doing departments and everything on the calendar that we have? So we're still good on that one. Yeah.
Yep, we are. We have our first presentations coming up on Monday.
Great.
You'll see the fire department's handouts in there. So that'll be a big discussion, because that's where most of the requests and, the public's been asking for the South Station too. So that'll be a big topic of discussion on Monday.
I do have one piece of good news. We met with Fish and Wildlife, all of the mayors up and down the coast, and it looks like our area is going to have about 55 digs this coming season.
That's like,
and that's great.
That's huge.
Well, it's huge because we split ours with Quinault. So I'm assuming we each have 55. Long Beach has over 200.
Yeah, I saw that. It's crazy.
It's just mind-boggling. But in any case, I'm trying to work with them to schedule ours and get, like half of them in this fall and then half in the spring, so that we keep reasons for people to come going. But it was pretty nice. They just got a tremendous number. And that's, of course, providing that nothing happens like, some sort of red tide or something.
But if we could have
what
that
based on? I mean, why do we get 200? How do they base?
Sorry. Yeah, they base it on the number of clams. They do sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, sampling. And they figure that we have 12 million clams. And down there in Long Beach, they've got twice as many.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I did read that Long Beach, Dan said he's never seen that many clams in Long Beach in the last 40 years. So that's
Wow.
Well, the great thing about that is if that transpires, and if we could reopen and have our Razor Clam Fest, I mean, this could have one of the best off-the-shoulder seasons we've ever had. Now it's kind of dependent on COVID, but that would be fantastic. So after what we thought was going to be an apocalyptic summer that turned out to be a pretty good summer for our businesses, to have that in addition to it would really be a huge plus. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Good. Well, that's all good.
So Bob, is there anything you want to add?
All in all, pretty positive.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I thought this was a productive meeting, and we'll get this on the website. Sarah, what's the time frame?
As soon as we're done here, as long as I can get it done before the next meeting, it'll be up at about 3.
Okay,
Great.
sounds great. Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
And
guys.
Sarah, thank you. I know you're completely massively overworked having to administer all these meetings. And I will owe you something at the end of the day for this.
The
Yeah.
blessing of it is that I'm learning a ton being at every single one of them. So
Yeah, well, your next step is to get you on the camera instead of just pictures.
nope.
The rest of us are having to do it. Come on. All right, great job.
Okay, all right, bye.